Cornel West actually announced formally on his Twitter that Peter Daou had resigned from his campaign. I am very sorry about the resignation of brother Peter Daou based on his health. I sincerely pray for him and his precious family and thank him for his service to my campaign. Now, Peter Daou resigned from the Marianne Williamson campaign because of his mother's health. That was the reason he gave. And then he now is resigning from this campaign for health reasons that Cornel West cites. So I took a look at Peter Daou. This was in response to Dr. West's tweet. Thank you, Brother West. And then that is attached to this other tweet that he fired off. I'm soul tired of human violence and brutality. I'm soul tired of the U.S. enabling and supporting it. My PTSD from growing up in Beirut under constant bombardment is being, hold on, that's just a quote tweet, is being triggered in a big way by this genocide. I'm going to take time off and pray on everything. Links to obviously some, horrific news, obviously out of Gaza that, we've all been dealing with. And so, I obviously don't fault him for, feeling triggered by that. But the thing is, man, look, I don't want to be an asshole here, but we're all triggered by that. I didn't grow up in war-torn Beirut, and so I wouldn't want to minimize that experience. I'm sure this is hard on him. Assuming this is the real reason why he left, which is doubtful because he gave a similar excuse for why he left the Marianne Williamson campaign. But I'll just look, for argument's sake, for the sake of not being an asshole, I'll take this on face value, okay? Let's say this is really upsetting and you need time off. Isn't the Cornel West campaign supposed to be a revolutionary campaign? Aren't we supposed to be fighters in the face of horror? Don't we buck up and fight back in the face of this horrible violence and war and, yes, genocide? Like, aren't we supposed to fight that? We're not supposed to retreat and do self-care like the campaign manager for an insurgent campaign, a third-party campaign that's really challenging the system. Don't you have any more fight in you than that? And if you don't, then maybe you shouldn't have been running the campaign in the first place, which is what we said. Now, that's if you take his words at face value. I just think, obviously, look, I don't know if Peter Daou is a parent or not. I know he grew up in, a war-torn nation. I don't know that he's a parent or not. I'm not sure. I don't know his bio very well. I tried looking into it. There's not much out there, which makes sense there wouldn't be. I mean, he's not a particularly famous person. He's a, political operative. But look, I have 2 4-year-old kids. Every single time, without fail, every single video or image that I see of an injured child or a maimed child or a dead child or a child crying over a dead parent, a mother or father, I always think, every single time, what if that were my kid? What if that were my family? What if I died and my kid didn't have me? Or obviously, like, these are horrible thoughts. These are very triggering thoughts. These are very upsetting thoughts that I wrestle with every single time. I don't have the life experience that Peter Daou has, but yeah, no, it's not. This is not easy for any of us here. I can't say because this is upsetting to me, I'm just not going to do the show anymore until this is over because I have to wait it out because it's too hard on me. Like, why have the show? Why have a platform if you're not going to use the platform to speak out against this stuff? And so, to me, that is just a very weak excuse. And that's giving him the benefit of the doubt, which, quite frankly, I'm not sure he deserves, but we'll get into that later because he fired off some very indignant tweets in response to criticism. But before we do that, do you have anything to add to this first part?
Yeah, so Daou is either an op or a crazy asshole. It's one or the other. Frankly, I'm inclined to think crazy asshole, because he says too many things that if they were running him as an op, they wouldn't want him to say. He takes too many positions they wouldn't want him to take. But hey, man, I could be wrong. That could be part of his cover. I don't know. His behavior is so weird, though. I mean, maybe it's some of both. Maybe he's a crazy asshole they're running as an op. I don't know. But it's very strange that he keeps getting these gigs when he's never succeeded at anything other than pissing people off on Twitter. What has this man accomplished? Like, what has he ever done that has been successful that you would say, you know what, we're in a tight spot? Call Peter Daou. Like, why would this be the guy that you would call? It doesn't really make any sense.
Right.
In regards to what you're saying, this came up a little on the Patreon stream last night. It was getting late, so I didn't chime in too much. When you look at a lot of history of the left, it is not or the successful left, whatever you think of some of the outcomes, and I've been critical of it. You know, the people who went on the Long March, I don't think they have the term self-care in Chinese. I don't think they have a term for that, right? Yeah, it's all of this fusion of kind of pop psychology kind of phrasing and ideas that got into, you really have to take care of you. No, you know what? Sometimes you have to be compartmentalized and repressed to get through certain things. You actually do. Is it the best thing for you? I don't know. I don't think anyone could argue that these ideas of self-care and being good to yourself, I don't think anyone could argue that they haven't become much more culturally prevalent over the last 50 years. How many people are on antidepressants now as opposed to then? How many people are struggling with mental illness now as opposed to then? So you can't make an argument to me that as these ideas have become more prevalent, we have better mental health outcomes. We have far worse mental health outcomes. And I will grant you that's a correlation versus causation thing. You can't say that's what created it. But I think you can definitely say it hasn't helped. These ideas haven't really helped in the end.
Well, if you look, I mean, obviously these were much, much lower stakes. It's almost comical to bring up in this context, but it is good for something. When Liz Warren dropped out, she, withheld her endorsement from Bernie because she said, well, I need self-care. I need time to heal from this. If you actually, if you're running for president, as Cornel is now running for president, if you believe these times are very dire and dark, as I'm sure Cornel understands, as Warren probably understood in her own superficial way. I mean, those times are, that was pre-pandemic. That was, there was not this Israel-Hamas war going on. There wasn't the Ukraine war going on, right? I mean, those times, we look back at those times and think, simpler days, right? But at the time, she thought the stakes were high. If you don't think the stakes are high, you don't get in the game. If you get in the game, it's because you think the stakes are high, and you have to fight through that. That's what a campaign is. That's what a third-party campaign is. That's what we need. I mean, at this point, Cornel is the only real anti-war candidate in the race with any significant polling support, and so it's on you to fight that fight. And if you can't do it, then you should resign, which he did. But that's part of why we were saying you shouldn't have this guy around in the first place. The guy is a career troll. He's just an unreliable, unsuccessful, incompetent troll. That's giving him the benefit of the doubt that his reasons for leaving were sincere. But a few hours later, a lot of people suspected that, this was, if not outright sabotage, at least not a coincidence. Oh, everything this guy touches turns to shit, right? And I tweeted out, I said, so Peter Daou started the Cornel West campaign. When he came onto the Cornel West campaign, Cornel had ballot access in 17 states and the infrastructure of, not a major party, but a major third party at least, backing him. Now, after Peter Daou, he has no campaign manager, no ballot access, no party infrastructure. He has nothing now. I mean, Cornel West has a website now. That's all he has. There is no campaign right now. So after Peter Daou comes in, tanks the campaign, and leaves, citing health reasons, people give a little pushback, and he lashes out here. Meanwhile, this guy just said a few hours ago he needed to take time off to go pray, right? But apparently, Peter Daou always has time to stir up shit on social media. Truth. To armchair Twitter quarterbacks who keep questioning my motives, here's a reality check. I saved Cornel West's campaign. Like I just said, when you got there, he had ballot access in 17 states and the support of the Green Party.
Peter Daou.
You're leaving, he has nothing.
He's the My Lai massacre of campaign managers.
Yeah, right.
He has to destroy the village in order to save it.
I saved Cornel West's campaign, and Marianne Williamson's for that matter, from financial insolvency and complete internal disarray. I created solid infrastructure, stabilized finances, built effective teams, encouraged unionization, and led both candidates to their highest poll numbers in the race. Importantly, Dr. West's tweets, statements, and political strategic decisions were entirely his own. And frankly, it's repulsive to suggest...
Get out the identity politics shield, quick!
Of course.
Identity politics activated! Boom!
And frankly, it's repulsive to suggest a black man of his intellect and stature is not making his own decisions. My only policy role was to help refine and launch his platform, written by his policy director, which has received praise from many quarters. He goes on. Excuse me. People who spew BS about me and don't have the slightest idea sorry, I got to get rid of this, actually. My bad. This logo's in the way. The mess I inherited at the Williamson and West campaigns and the tireless work I did to get both campaigns on track to challenge the duopoly at a toll to my own well-being. Again, at a toll to my own well-being. I forfeited my self-care routine to go and try and get these campaigns in order. Since, I mean, maybe this is like
my skincare
nostalgia.
regimen went right out the window.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, maybe this is, I don't know, nostalgia on my part, but I seem to remember a time when the campaign managers for these campaigns were kind of expected to go the distance to like run the campaign through election day.
Finish.
You know, the norm is when you managed a campaign and you promise, as Daou wrote, our ironclad commitments is that we will be on the ballot through election day. You're basically saying you're going to stay the course because this is a huge opportunity. And now you're saying, hey, I did my job. I got their finances in order. I built the team. And then I left. That's what a campaign manager does. They stay around for 8 weeks. They strip the candidate of all ballot access and all supportive infrastructure. And then they leave to go do, self-care. Another fact, my personal beliefs are significantly to the left of both candidates I've worked for in this cycle. Who cares? I mean, that doesn't matter. Yeah. Finally, I remain deeply grateful to Jill Stein for bringing me to Dr. West's campaign and to him for giving me the opportunity to support his mission. I've spent this cycle doing everything politically possible to mount credible challenges to the ruthless ruling parties. I've communicated with every non-GOP challenger, encouraged RFK Jr. to run as an indie, and relentlessly called on genocide-enabling Joe Biden to step down. Okay, now... this is his last piece, and then
a hero.
Yeah, exactly. This is his last piece of the thread, and then there's somebody replied to him, and he replied back, which I thought was very telling. Yeah. And although I have thicker skin than most, well, no, you don't have thicker skin than most. You're quitting.
Clearly not.
Yeah. I'm still sick and tired of Twitter naysayers who snipe at me and the candidates I work for from the sidelines. I guess that's us. While we're doing everything we can to take on the oppressive system. Now, there was someone...
Well, if this is everything you can, thanks but no thanks. Why don't we sit down and shut the fuck up and get out of the conversation? You're not helping.
Yeah, exactly, which I thought that's what he was going to do. I thought that's why he quit in the first place, because he needed some time off. But here, Stir Me Some Biscuits says, quitting after upending West's best shot at ballot access through the Green Party is hardly doing everything you can, Peter. It's quite the opposite. And Peter says, who upended it? He makes his own choices. What don't you understand about a black man of his achievement and brilliance making his own decisions? Now, if you remember, Peter Daou fell back on all of this identity politics bullshit during the Hillary Clinton campaign. He really pioneered the Bernie bro strategy of just accusing Bernie Sanders supporters and anyone who had a bad word to say about his candidate of being sexist and even racially insensitive, right? I mean, this was his go-to back in 2016. This has been his MO all along, just to make the cheapest retort possible to any substantive criticism. Once again, this guy came on board to a campaign with ballot access in 17 states. He leaves the campaign with ballot access in 0 states and 0 infrastructure and apparently 0 staff. He mentioned word about them enrolling volunteers. And not to mention, Cornell's polling has really collapsed. He was up around 7 to 9 points a few weeks ago. Since all this, he's back down at 2 or 3. Since RFK entered the race, now you see RFK in the high teens, low 20s even in some polls, and Cornell low single digits. I mean, whether you want to say Daou destroyed it, ultimately I think the buck stops at the candidate. But there's a reason why the hiring of Peter Daou was the last straw for so many who were inclined to support the Cornel West campaign, and this is it. This is it. I mean, the fucking guy tanks the campaign, quits because he says he needs a mental health break, and then fights with people on Twitter all day who criticize him for leaving after having done an objectively horrible job, as everybody predicted he would, because he has a track record of repeated and colossal failure.
Yeah, well, people don't really change, and it's kind of a truism that none are more blindly fanatical than the convert, right? So he was a scumbag as a Clinton operative. He's a scumbag on the other side, if he truly is on the other side, and he's not just an op. Who was the guy? He was a major Clinton operative who had been like a notorious dirty trickster for the Republicans, and he just became a dirty trickster for the Clintons. He was one of their main people. He was very prominent in their circle.
Well, there's David Brock, but then I think the guy you're talking about is Dick Morris, who's now a Republican, because he started with the Clintons and now he's a Republican.
I'm talking about Brock. I think I'm talking about Brock. Yeah, it's kind of like that. Like, Brock never changed. He just switched teams. Right. So, Daou switched teams, but he's still that guy who's going to throw out the ad hominem attacks and the very Blanche Dubois getting the vapors when he's criticized. Oh, I do declare I am to the left of all of you. Right. He's still that guy. He's just batting for another team now, if he truly is, because it is suspicious that this guy keeps getting these jobs. How does he keep getting these jobs? Like, I could understand how you're a crazy, incompetent asshole who thinks you're qualified for these jobs and keeps applying for them. That doesn't explain why he keeps getting them. It's right. If you were running a fucking third-party campaign, would you hire this loser? Look at his resume, you would say, oh, my God.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, there was a no-brainer from day one. And, look, everyone who doubted the Cornel campaign has been proven right, and everyone along the way who has apologized for the Cornel campaign at every turn has been proven wrong. I mean, that's ultimately what you have to look at, right? Who's been proven right here and who's been proven wrong? Anybody who still has any faith that this campaign is even going to last through the spring, I think, is really fooling themselves. I mean, he may do what Marianne's doing, which is run a sort of PR campaign, basically use the fact
to podcasters.
Exactly. Use the fact that he's running for president as ways to get on TV and talk to podcasters and things like that. But there is no campaign here. I mean, now there literally is no campaign here. Who's the campaign manager now? What campaign is there? What infrastructure is there? He's a guy who says he's running for president at this point. There's no machine behind him. There's no organization behind him at this point. We really thought that
he should
those hopes were gone when he left the Greens, but now I mean, there's nothing.
Yeah, you should get Howie Hawkins to take over the campaign.
Right, exactly.
There's a guy with a record of success.
We'll see if Howie Hawkins ends up on the green ticket again. Who the hell knows?
And I'm seeing some people, before we went on in the chat saying, well, now Cornel could get serious. I don't mean to laugh. I'm sorry, man. But we haven't dropped this in a while. It seems appropriate.
I love you, but you are not serious people.
Cornel, this whole campaign was the worst thing he ever did for his image and reputation. Because I think a lot of us, myself included, who admired him, and very few people had a bad word to say about him. A few did. When he declared, there were a few people who did say this about him, that he was not what he appeared to be, that he was essentially a liberal Democrat, and that's really his guiding star. And, some people said it, but I think most of us, particularly because he was on board with both Sanders campaigns, people who came out of the Sanders campaigns, that's basically what we knew about Cornel West. Most of us hadn't really delved into his record. This destroyed his image. I mean, to me, like, in terms of torching his reputation, the Harlan Crow thing really did it. And then the self-justifying identity politics, trying to shield himself from responsibility for that and having to be pressured to give that money back. Framing his collection of Nazi memorabilia as a never forget themed collection. Like, dude, I'm sorry, man. When you're out there trying to justify the man's fondness for the products of the Reich, it's time to reevaluate the turns you've taken in life.
Please clap.